Alors, les projets qui ont émergé du sommet des deux rives, dont certains à nouveau seront présentés dans un instant, ils incarnent tout cela. Ils incarnent une Méditerranée concrète, une Méditerranée positive et une Méditerranée importante. Il faut qu'on parvienne à faire c'est qu'il faut qu'on fasse résonner la Méditerranée au maximum.
A theoretical manner, such as an intellectual, almost outdated model. Brodel is great. It's a great source of inspiration, but come on, Brodel today does not correspond to the Mediterranean world. So, maybe because I come from this part of the world, the Mediterranean world is more than that. It's the past, of course, but it's the present as well, the future. And Mediterranean of the future, in fact, embodies that. So, Mediterranean is a way of life, traditions, common hopes, references, and which beyond borders will gather us all. So it's a line, which unites us among, beyond our differences. So, and we have for this to mobilize all the networks that do exist. Let me mention a few. Euromed Cities, Avitem, which plays a key role, and congratulations to the work done by the director, Bernard Valero, the Annalyn Foundation, the MediWide CMI network, all people from the Summit of the Two Shores. And what's essential is to unite our forces where synergies are obvious, very much like Vision of the Future and the Dialogue of the Two Shores. And then, of course, at a time which is very scary, we have to make the mission of the future a positive moment, of a friendly, solidarity-based moment. And I'm saying this clearly, a popular moment, action. It's often this is perceived in a kind of elitistic aspect. No, the mission should talk to the people. We have to find the means to drive, to embark people wherever they come from, especially the youth, which has to be at the heart of this process, at the heart of the Dialogue of the Two Shores. That's it, my friends. This is from my end. I've given you a couple of lines for this Dialogue of the Two Shores of the philosophy and the mission that we try to convey. Mediterranean of project, concrete Mediterranean project, positive Mediterranean, which is more than a sum of project, which is in fact a common fate. And I think this is what gathers us, and this is what we at the Interministerial Delegation for the Mediterranean want to convey with you, to continue to expand and to embody. Thank you again to the region, the CMI, all the project carriers, all the partners, and just a quick word for my team. They do a great job with amazing means. But anyway, great thank to all the work you've done and the passion you put in it, and that we all put in it. And then to finish, one word to all those who will talk after me, to congratulate you for being here and to wish you all a great workshop. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. The passion and the energy that you put in these words convey a lot of hope, and we gather that we'll meet you very soon in Marseille to keep working along that vein. Mrs. Avitem, you're a teacher at the University of Marseille, a teacher in economy. You've been president of the Euro-Mediterranean Forum at the Institute of Economical Sciences, and we need your eye, the eye of someone from a university. We need to know what you think of the current situation. Your work is on resilience in the Mediterranean countries. And throughout that crisis, the COVID crisis, resilience is the capacity to overcome trauma and shocks. I think we're in the heart of it, and we're listening to you. Thank you. Thank you, Blanca. Thank you, Mr. Muselier. Thank you, Mr. Milal. Mr. Milal, thank you for your optimism and your enthusiasm, which we could hear in your introductory speech. I am no longer a president of the scientific committee of the SME, or we would have met a number of times. No, the situation has changed. I'm a teacher in AMU and at AMCE, and I am a specialist in Mediterranean countries. I am quite familiar with that subject that we're working on. I coordinate a CMI IMF report on future growth opportunities in the Mediterranean. It's a report that will be published at the beginning of 2021, and we will focus on an analysis of potential strategies for the Mediterranean for the after COVID. Before mentioning opportunities and future situation, it's useful to say a few words on the present situation. I'm not going to mention the sanitary situation. We are all familiar with this, and it's not easy to compare the number of patients in all the countries. We know that figures depend on how often you test people. It's not necessarily that useful to make such a comparison. I would like to focus on the social and economic situation of our countries in just a few words. What are the social and economic consequences of the COVID-19 crisis on Mediterranean countries? Forecasts are for the year 2021 a fall of revenue of about 5% for all our countries. The expected cost is expected for 3.7% of the region revenues, and it's not that significant, but it's got to be placed in the appropriate context. And this crisis adds to pre-existing vulnerabilities. We know that we have high unemployment, 16% in Tunisia, 36% for the youth. Beyond this, the rates of activities are very low, usually under 50%, which means that throughout Mediterranean countries, less than 1 out of 2 persons in working age is actually working or looking for unemployment. And another dimension is that of the role of the informal sector, which is estimated at 30 to 40%. If you mixed all those informations together, it means that even before this crisis, we only had 1/3 of the population of working age people who were actually inserted in the economic system, which means that societies are very exclusive. Another particularity of Mediterranean countries is that compared with other countries, they have managed to significantly reduce their poverty rates, which is a very good achievement. Nonetheless, Mediterranean countries are characterized by a very strong vulnerability of people, and this pandemic adds to the vulnerability. It's a tremendous shock, and we expect the number of poor to go on the rise in the region. We think that poverty rates could come back to the levels that prevailed in the 1990s, 30 years ago. We have some estimates by countries which are very frightening. For Morocco and Tunisia, it would be around 20%. In Lebanon, the Ministry of Finance estimated last April that 45% of Lebanese people living in poverty, including 20% in extreme poverty, meaning less than $1.9 per day per person. And since then, figures are even worse. In Gaza, the poverty rate is estimated around 80%. So this has a very strong impact. We also have to keep in mind that even if there are some social networks and safety nets, you cannot compare them with what exists in our countries. Beyond the global impact, which is not necessarily very telling, you have in those countries tremendous social consequences. And without being too alarmist, in this context of political instability and rise of extremisms, we should not close our eyes on that situation and contribute to the future growth of all Mediterranean countries so as to reach a win-win situation, both for southern countries and for northern countries. I will now move on to growth opportunities in the Mediterranean after the COVID crisis. If you allow me, quite briefly, because we are behind our schedule. All right. So the utmost priority is the creation of a fund, and we ask ourselves as economists and researchers how we could contribute to the thinking. And the first thing that came to our mind was that we should learn from the COVID crisis. This context has been marked by technological changes and by the new place that the environment occupies, and we also want to promote a more inclusive growth. If you bring all those elements together, it means that after this crisis, we will have to reflect upon our production systems, because we have come to realize that we were too dependent on Asian suppliers. So we will have to consider developing our own production tools, and we will have to overcome the issue of under supply. We will also have to encourage companies to have shorter value chains. It is difficult to have in mind a post-COVID strategy if you don't keep those four elements in mind: securizing value chains, the environment, digitalization, and more inclusive societies that can give us a few ideas. I will quote a few of these. First of all, we would have to identify which sector or product could be an opportunity for Mediterranean countries. We could begin with identifying products imported by European Mediterranean countries, which have to be shipped from long distances. We could also start again to export some products among our countries. We would have to identify some production chains, taking into account a potential demand within our countries. So far, we were buying such products from Asia. We should promote intra-regional work and intra-Mediterranean value chain and identify opportunities to create new value chains with European companies. Ideally, this should be done by some business organizations, and we need to understand why such value chains were not existing in Europe so far. Is it a problem of quality, competitivity? What's the reason behind this situation? If you allow me to intervene, we are too late behind our schedule. You have clearly defined our present situation, and you have mentioned a number of solutions that could be put in place to remedy this situation. Blanca Moreno, you are the General Director of the Center for Mediterranean Integration of the World Bank. You are in charge of putting in place, in the framework of the Dialogue of the Two Rims, a platform to exchange projects and knowledge. You can introduce this project. Thank you, Olivier. I would like to thank Mr. Renaud Muselier and his team for keeping this tradition of this Mediterranean of the future here in Marseille, in spite of the present situation. And I'm very proud to take part to this event for the fourth time now. It is very interesting to be part of that workshop, which brings together our dear Ambassador Karima Mela, our friend Patricia, who represented academia, and project holders who are going to take the floor after me. It is an honor to launch the digital platform for projects. So it's the birth of this platform. It is online. You will be able to find it after this meeting. In a nutshell, the Center for Mediterranean Integration is very happy to present this platform. Last year, during this very same event here in Marseille, Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian decided to request our center to host the platform so as to follow up on the work of the summit, but also to follow up on all Mediterranean initiatives. The Center for Mediterranean Integration is a platform representing governments, civil society, regional institutions, and it is an honor for us to host this platform, which I'm going to introduce shortly. You can see here what's the role of the CMI as a facilitator. You have the 5+5 countries which created that dialogue of the two rims. We also have a number of international organizations, including the World Bank, which contribute to this process, and they've contributed to the project for the last 2 years. They have supported the projects that have emerged in civil society. These projects cover a wide variety of sectors: the environment, the digital, health, education, a huge number of projects which help us to fulfill our integration objectives. We're going to enter the platform now. Before strolling through the platform, I must say that there's a part of the platform which is visible by all, and there's also a securized intranet for project holders and investors. This platform is bilingual. Project holders will be able to present their projects and to help creating the appropriate networks through a dialogue with national and international institutions. This is the first page. You can connect here as a member for the restricted part of the platform, or as someone from the public. You can see here a few examples of projects. You can see the themes, the countries who are presenting the projects. You can see the cities who are behind the projects. There's Marseille, there's Casablanca. You can discover all the projects in all details. There are many other projects apart from these which you can see on the screen, and they have been selected in the framework of our dialogue of the two rooms, but many other projects will be included those which are related to the Mediterranean of the future. You can see on that page how the international organizations are part to this project. They've been with us all along. Let's take the example of the OECD, which provides technical support to this project. Any investor or project holder who's not familiar with these institutions may better understand what this organization can do to support them. And we will have 8 institutions altogether. Our approach consists in supporting civil society as an engine so as to promote common projects. These projects are on strategic issues. Then you can see some news. Is there a future summit? What are the future events? The next page is that of the newsletter. You can subscribe so as to always be informed of what's going on. Then we have a page for projects, and then you will be able to enter into all details and select projects which are relevant by sectors, depending on what you are interested in. Then we have the project file. The holders work on this. They are harmonized files containing all the necessary information for everyone, budgets and so on. And this is a harmonized information.
Then there will be the page for international organization. We already give you the example of the OECD. You can move on. And then we move on to the private space, for which we will connect at the top of the page for those who have a password, and we will get possibly confidential information. Then you see the directory, and you can get in touch with all those who are involved in projects, and at the same time, at the same part, the private part, well, there will be soon the possibility to have a chat. You know, it doesn't work yet, but remember, you know, this is a work in progress, okay? We don't have everything yet, but we will build the second step part step by step. So it's a bilingual site. You will see how the, in the next slide, how the platform already exists in both languages. And you can connect yourself to the next slide. You will see and see how you can find us. So come and visit this version 1. That is, additional functionalities are being prepared, as well as content. Thanks to your contributions. Thank you very much. And I know that you want to listen to the project holders. I'll stop now. Thank you, Olivier. Thank you, and President Muselier, and all those involved. Thank you. Thank you, Madame. Thank you very much. This is quite a concrete project. And as indicated early on, and we will place it at the end of the workshop, the link that makes it possible to go directly to the platform for those who would like to know the project and those who wish to submit projects in the coming months or weeks. Now, let's move on to a description of a certain number of projects, which are either a project that come from the Dialogue of the Two Shores or from Mission of the Future, and especially last year's session, to see how they've evolved, what are the concrete achievements, and what are their needs. And I will now give the floor to Alexandre and Paul, who will present now the 6th project of this Dialogue of the Two Shores and of the Mission of the Future. Thank you, Olivier. So indeed, it is our great pleasure to introduce a certain number of projects which are representative of the Mission of the Future, and that we will build together to your contribution. We'll start with the first project in education with Mr. Philippe Guillaumet, who works for the Marseille Port Authority. He's an international and European project manager. He'll talk about a network of school of professions of the sea or marine naval professions. So you can, Mr. Guillaumet, you have the floor. Thank you. I'll try to give you the presentation of the project that the Port of Marseille Authority is conducting together with the Association of Merchant Ports, which is a project, as you said, which since its advent has evolved. I mean, I'm sure the COVID pandemic played a role, but other factors did play a role as well, including the wish to have it evolve, you know, in a positive manner and to make it accessible to all the populations of the merchant world. So you give me 5 minutes, I'll be fast, but I want to thank the organization of the Mission of the Future for giving us the possibility to pitch, as we say, our project. So rapidly, the economy of the sea is indeed a great future. Maritime transport is 90% of goods in the world, turnover which goes well beyond the 3,000 billions of added value, and socio-economic impact, which is quite amazing. So there is no need to demonstrate to show the importance of this domain. And it is a domain that is evolving, where today's, you know, maritime transport, port activities, you know, tourism, I mean, you know, this will continue, but will also be joined by new sectors such as, you know, biodiversity, you know, development of renewable energies and so on and so forth. So all this in the domain of maritime economy. So it is a domain that is evolving, changing, and of course we will call for new resources, and this is the economy of the sea of the Mediterranean. It's obvious. I mean, the Mediterranean is the heart of maritime routes, and you know, it is at the heart of environmental challenges and stakes, and there is a diversity, there's a huge diversity, and so of course we are we are in the obligations to deal with such amazing challenges. So the idea is, how are we going to answer this following three axes? So the first is to understand the evolutions and the needs of the domain, to organize the meeting between the offers and supply and demand, supply and demand. Of course, then there is a need for training. And then, of course, third level, to support the development of suitable trainings. Could we have the slide? Thank you. So, how do we organize, how do we match supply and demand? Well, demand and supply and demand for training. Of course, though, we want to propose an initial solution, measured solution to these institutional stakes, and that would rely both on what exists, because we already have networks, training networks, or or people, institutions which offer trainings, and also people who are asking for this, or institutions are asking for it, and to organize the matching. And this is where we get to the cloud. The idea is to create a cloud, some kind of a cloud of matching between supply and demand for training. Well, what would be the shape of the cloud? Well, what is it basically? Well, first, of course, it is an instrument provided to the players and to the future players of the economy of the sea, of all economic activities around the economy of the sea, and all those who want to get into this and do these professions. And of course, this is a tool. When we created the tool, well, the platform, this cloud, I mean, AI means artificial intelligence, intensification of the existing network, creating bridges between the various trainings, and the creation of a transnational training with the support of professionals, mobilization of human resources. And then we'll go to the creation of global references. Quickly, to next slide, so you'll be able to click. Okay. This cloud is a meeting site, it's you will be the person who has no diploma, someone who's reorganizing, who's retraining, changing profession. So there will be a smart questionnaire. All the institute and training schools, individual will be able to answer. And of course, okay, my 5 minutes are gone. So the understanding and evaluation of the business professions will be managed by an observatory. This is the global project, and inside there is the Claudia project. So just let me do my conclusion. I'm at your disposal, but I constrained by the 5 minutes. So 3 objectives, main objectives is, with more skills, more qualifications, well, improve the performance of all the players of this ecosystem of the Mediterranean and of the economy of the sea, improve, as we say, the skills and the people, performance people planet, to achieve development of the sustainable and resilient economy of the sea. And let me add, because that tool will be developed, let me add that today we are in we work in close collaboration with the region Sud, which is helping us via with the University of Toulon, the ANU for the creation, and we are working with all the players to create a national foundation, which will be the special vehicle purpose of this project, and which will make it possible to develop now at the network scale. And the network of mission sport has already budgeted funding. And finally, all the mission ports, because I'm the Secretary General of this institution, gives full support to the development of this project. Thank you.
De la Méditerranée, 8 minutes et 7. J'ai dépassé de 3:07.
I'm sorry, I went to 3:07. Thank you for your attention. I remain at your disposal for all the participants. Thank you again.
puisque absolument absent à tous les rendez-vous que nous avons eus. Donc, merci de votre compréhension.
Thank you all for your understanding and see you soon. Thank you, Mr. Guillemet. We wish you lots of good success for this project, which seems to be quite on track, as we say. Now, we move on to a second project, also from the Summit of the Two Shores, which is now in the domain of heritage. That is the COPAM project with Mrs. Zineb Shakir and Mr. Bouzik Sabeg. Good morning, good afternoon, sorry. And the two of you are the co-steering this project launched in 2019 for the Heritage of the Mediterranean, supported by UNESCO, Ministry of the Region Sud, and the City of Arles. Do you have the slides, or do you give me do I have the hand? Okay, yeah. You're on. So, first, thank you very much for this great organization and for this invitation. A quick word about the role of the heritage in the resilience actions versus, to fight the crisis. Our situation today means that we have to do a social economic resilience in addition to the management of natural risk and hazards. Well, the Convention of the World Heritage will, consolidate the resilience of local population by reinforcing the three dimensions of sustainable development, that is inclusive social development, solidarity economy, and environmental sustainability. And it has shown now the degradation of natural resources in the rural zone, urban sprawl, and new poorly designed buildings, increase the vulnerability of populations and heritage. While heritage is an asset to be protected and a resource that will make it possible to develop or reinforce the capability of the communities to resist and to recover from such disaster. So it is in such difficult times and to overcome the tensions and common challenges that the COPAM wishes continue to convey its value of solidarity, to promote cooperation and the exchange in the 5+5 dialogue. So could we move on to the next slide, please?
Pas de souci. Le COPAM, c'est...
So COPAM, so I'll start the presentation before the slides. COPAM means to co-develop World Heritage in the Mediterranean. So why? Because we focus mainly on what is, this is slide 48, thank you. We focus on what is common, what makes links, what unites us in the Mediterranean shores, potential cooperation between the countries. These links have to be fortified, improved, rebuilt to have a more dynamic, more resilient, and more solidarity-based Mediterranean area. So COPAM is, of course, really a work of the Mediterranean. It was created by the Summit of the Two Shores, and we work collectively to improve the heritage of the territories. It is a meeting between the territories, civil society, and we do insist on the fundamental aspect of the mobilization of civil society because it provides inclusive, innovative, and pluralistic approach when it comes to culture. We, as the COPAM team, we are a multidisciplinary team with scientific heritage experience or project management experience, and COPAM can rely on a wide network of partners on the two shores, be they collectivities, cities, regions, research institute, independent experts, and highly skilled experts. COPAM is sponsored by Mrs. Ouchalaoui, who is a Nobel Prize winner, and she's a Tunisian personality. So from the start, COPAM was supported by the Région Sud, by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the City of Arles, and UNESCO, and is still federating a high number of partners on the So that's the north shores of the Mediterranean. So, so could we have the next slide, please? So 400 sites in the region. €1 invested in the heritage means that 20 euros on 20 euros of return on investment. So this was a study done by Stuval, and COPAM is, well, acts on the registration of you know, of listing heritage assets, and there were 3 project pilots with 1 project pilot project per country of the 5+5 projects. Ongoing project, well, is Tipaza with the evaluation of the archaeological site of site, 1 in invitation of the Sfax Medina in Tunisia, and creation of vision path of rebats, which are citadels. Thank you. In terms of structuration, it is well advanced at the legal level, communication and partnership. And creation of COPAM as an association will take place soon with 2 seats, 1 in Arles and a technical center in Tipaza in Algeria, which is a reflection of the collaborative. I'll give the floor to Bouzig to conclude on the financial assessment and close this presentation. So the purpose, as Ambassador Karim Ahmed said, we want to have a structure that fits with long-term project, and it has to have impact in all aspects in the territory, social, territorial, and so on and so forth. So to do this, we have a mode of operation which is, of course, a structure which today should be a kind of an association and possibly a foundation with an operating budget to have a true team and to have the best experts and specialists who will come and join us. And the idea is that we should have an annual budget of €5 million on average. That will make it possible to act on several actions in all the sites of the 10 countries. So the purpose is that such funding should come from direct funds from the annual budget. That will make it possible to be to define priority actions, and another mode of operation, which will be if there is one project carrier who wishes to do one specific operation, and third one will be, of course, call for projects with European funds, which may support a specific project with project holders, Tunisians, Algerians, Frenchians, or Moroccans, but ask the COPAM structure to help them implement the project. So the purpose here is to make sure that things will be rapidly operational for at least one project for all the 10 countries in such a way that it will fit, it will last with specific project or transverse project that would interest all the sites of the countries.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Sabeg, Madame Shakir, pour cette présentation.
Thank you for this excellent presentation. We will now hear about a project in the area of education, training of youth. We saw in the initial presentation by Mrs. Roger that the issue of unemployment is a very serious one in the Mediterranean. Let's welcome Astrid de Jobert of the European Institute of Cooperation for Development, and she will talk about the network Mediterranean, a new chance. Mrs. de Jobert, you have the floor. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for recalling these figures, which are very alarming. Almost 1 youth out of 2 in Morocco or Tunisia do not reach secondary schooling. Youth unemployment is skyrocketing. This is why we really should focus and work together. We are very proud of the results we've had. So far, our network has 3 times as many members as 3 years ago, and we now have about 30 centers in many countries. However, it remains a drop in the ocean. We have 90 million of youth in North Africa who will be unemployed sooner rather than later. So we have to work together with our governments and with the civil society and with the society at large, so as to change the way we look at those young people who are very willing to find their place in society. When students drop out of school, very often they would like to work. They don't necessarily have a profile that is the best one for schooling, for education, but these are the people who want to be on the labor market. Over the last 3 years, and including through this summit of the two shores, we've had some 60 trainings and exchanges of good practices. 19 projects are now funded through a call for project, which has been launched by the French Foreign Ministry and in collaboration with Monaco. These projects are very inspiring for all actors. We have witnessed many great innovations in terms of environment. We also work on a digital project so as to promote a better access to digital technologies for the youth. And we have 2 great projects underway, which I would like to mention. The first one, with the support of the Tunisian government, we are putting up a scheme to give a second chance for young people in Tunisia. Many governments are more and more interested into such second chance projects. So we are working together so as to organize a national scheme on the basis of local associations who are already providing second chance solutions, but they need our support so as to improve the quality of their trainings. Very briefly, I'd like to come back to the needs that we have at present. As was already mentioned, we need to change the way that society looks upon those young people, and we want to create a partnership with an association by which we are producing a video so as to show who those young people are. But we also need your support so as to make sure that we become a center for expertise, consulting and sensitizations, awareness, both for local actors, perhaps associations and those who need our support, but also for constitutional actors who request more and more support from other Mediterranean actors. We also need some support to fund the actions of the network, the projects, for instance, digital projects. We also want to focus on strengthening the presence of young women on the labor market. In some countries, young women cannot access to the trainings they would like to. We also need some fundings aimed at the civil society and the youth. And with the support of the French Foreign Ministry, we can act in a very positive way for the youth. We need both local support as well as national support. In Portugal, for instance, there is a network that is being created, bringing together 4 schools on the basis of one law that has just been ratified, so as to recognize those second chance schools. Finally, we need some support so as to establish some partnerships with companies which could act as potential recruiters for the youth. So we would be able to provide some professional chances for these young people. In one word, I'd like to thank you for the support that you've brought to us, and we can see the positive effect of that action through the mobilization of our governments. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mrs. Desjobert, for this very positive and enthusiastic testimony. Some projects are on the right path in spite of the crisis, and you are opening up our horizons, and this is particularly interesting. Let's now move on to a project in the area of culture with Mr. Jan Kambreberg and Mrs. Naïma Nabil Tajemwati, who are going to talk to us about the project on books. Mr. Kambreberg, you are the director of Atlas, Association for the Promotion of Literary Translation, and Mrs. Naïma Nabil Tajemwati, you are a teacher in economics in the University of Social and Economic Sciences in Fes in Morocco. You will present to us this project with 2 components, one on the area of translation and one in the area of editing. You have the floor. Thank you. I thank all the organizers of this initiative. Naïma, is it okay if I start? Can you hear me, first of all? Yes, and can you hear me? Yes, very well. Jörg, do you want to start? Thank you. I wanted to talk about the translation aspect of this initiative, which is a common initiative taken by a committee of the Summit of the Two Shores Books. And this initiative has in mind, so to speak, the Mediterranean House of Translation. In just a few words, can we move on to the second slide? So first of all, you may not be familiar with the context of literary translation. When you translate a book, you need to know the target culture, and the translation flux between the French and the Arabic, for instance, are very thin, and this relation is deeply asymmetrical. The flux is weak, but it's even more weak in the southbound direction. And in the area of human and social sciences, we start from almost nothing. It's been stated many times over the last 10 years, and one of these studies is mentioned on the slide. I can only agree with what the ambassador told us. We tend to consider the Arab world as something homogeneous, but such is not the case at all. For a literary translator, well, usually the translator is on the North Shore. He has a status as an author and lives more or less from rights, the rights that he gets from his work. Just as a writer, it doesn't pay well, so it's not a very attractive job, and it's difficult to find competent translators, especially for some language like Arabic. The profession is quite heterogeneous because of the training. You can get some training in English, but it's difficult to find some training for literary translation in Arabic. And Arabic is part of a few programs in ALCO, for instance, but it's a more general training which is provided in such schools or institutes. The status of literary translator is not very well protected, and there is no market, especially in southern Mediterranean countries. Usually translations are made by teachers or writers, and they benefit from some schemes like prizes. The scouting role is little developed amongst southern translators, because usually they work on the basis of specific orders. Much of the work is not in the 5 countries of the 5+5, but in Egypt and Lebanon. But of course, there are some editors in Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia, but this is quite unusual with respect to what you could find in the Maghreb. The initiative of a European House of Translation is very welcome, but we need to go into action. There is in Arles an initiative carried by Atlas. It is the International College of Literary Translators. It's been there for almost 40 years now. They have a residency with 10 residency rooms, a library with 20,000 books, and they host literary translators from the entire world. This residency and place of work aims at hosting translators working from French into different languages and from other language into French. And it is on the basis of that concept that I would like to make some suggestions for future development, so as to promote literary translation and get it better known in the eyes of the public at large. Are we on slide number? Yes, that's fine. So you were able to see the library. You can see the kitchen here, which is a nice place for exchange. And as you can see now, we are active in some literature events. You have a few examples here of some events that took place in 2019. We brought together 1,500 people, not only professionals. What was created as a professional event became a full-fledged festival. This idea of a Mediterranean House for Translation would be to enlarge our focus and to be more open. We have 2 projects for 2021. One which is called LEILA, which is a reverse acronym, which means Arab Literatures in European Languages, and a project carried by the Summit of the Two Shores, which is supported by the steering committee of the Summit of the Two Rims. We have been supported by the IREMO, and the first launching meeting will take place tomorrow. It aims at exchanging on professional practices between translators. It is a very ambitious project. One aspect of it is studying and exchanging, but there's also an editing aspect and an event organization aspect. So it will start in 2021 and will spread up until 2023. We have some European funding. We have a support, some funding, which we hope to get from the region Sud. And this aims at having a wider perspective on literature in our countries. We bring together some actors from the civil society. Atlas has been chosen to work on the translation aspect. We have some funding expectations for 2021-2022, but with the pandemic, it will start only towards May or June, which is a shame for us. We had a previous project which was called Levée d'encre, through which we had brought together young translators. They had worked for a year and had identified some new texts which illustrated the circulation of ideas throughout Mediterranean countries. In the framework of the Summit of the Two Shores, we want to have a different scheme. We want to train in Morocco, in Algeria, in Tunisia. We want to identify some literary translators' vocations. It's very difficult to identify some potential translators, and we want to create a group of translators. We want to support this group through what we call the Fabrique des Traducteurs, the fabric of translators. And we will have a number of needs to carry out this project. We would like to encourage our translators to work on in the longer run. So we need some fundings for this. We want this scheme to be wider than what we had so far. We want to focus on both the French language and the Arab language. We need some structures, and we also need to build on our know-how. So we will need more extensive funding. In the long run, the problem for civil society is that we focus on operations, but we also need to have with us some competent collaborators who stay with us in the long term. Thank you. I hope that was not too long. Thank you, Mr. Cambreleng. Let's give the floor to your colleague. Thank you. Just a few words on the context. As a resource person of the group of 100 of the Summit of the Two Rims, I had presented a few projects, and one of these has been kept. It is in connection with the book and the editing world. And there was another project which has been presented in terms of translation, and we had decided to group the two projects into one single project with a very long title, which is this one, Mediterranean House for Translation and Mutualization of Edition in Mediterranean Languages. This very long title for their translation has just been presented by Jörg Cambrelang. And what I would like to say is that the translation aspect and the editing aspect are not at the same stage. We do not advance at the same rhythm. And by the way, I would like to thank once again Mr. Cambrelang, because he built his work on an association which has been there for 40 years now. For the editing aspect, this is a very new dimension which we are in the process of starting. Since this has been created in Marseille, what happened?
Well, I want to thank the French Institute for their support and action, and we are setting up a collective. So we've decided after several meetings, we've decided to start. I'm sorry, I have to be the bad person. We still have two projects to present, and we only have 10 minutes left, whereas time dedicated has already been exceeded. So please, we will we'll pass on to all the investors. We will pass on the information you could have done us, and we'll move on to the next project. And thank you very much. I know it's not very nice what I'm doing, but I really have to do it because of the for the facilitation of this project, so that the others can take floor. Thank you. So now we give the floor to Mr. Lavoisier from Eranova, who designed in producing plastics, bioplastics from algae. Mr. Lavoisier. Thank you very much. We'd like to, we repeat the presentation we did in the presentation of Méditerranée du Futur with several progresses. First, I invite you to start on the next slide. So we are biotech, and we insist on sustainable development, and especially we provide concrete solutions to environmental challenges. Next slide. So this was defined by several priorities in the United Nations in the chapters, which could organize according to several topics. First, to valorize waste. You know, we do have a lot of waste today, especially Mediterranean has 7% of the water surface of the world, but has far more pollution, especially plastic pollution. The other pollution, more and more, is all the algae in Egypt, Turkey, Italy, Tunisia, Morocco. Of course, consumers want to maintain the quality of water, and moreover, we will we'll have to soon feed 9 billion inhabitants, so we can't use land to produce plastic. So one of the themes as well is to capture CO2, and of course, one last and we want to work on circular economy. Next slide. So we've worked on a circular economy based on the sea, algae. We transform them, we get several finished products on the right-hand side, which are usually, you know, daily products, packaging, and so on and so forth. But today, those products are found at the sea. So what we suggest with this technology is indeed to recycle them, which happens more and more. And thank you to the good behavior of the citizens, we could turn them into energy, but we can also, unfortunately, find them in the sea again. So we want to have biosourced material that will not impact anything at sea or in nature, and with no impact on the marine environment, the toxicity, and of course, everything that's comes out of this degradation at sea will then be used to renew the stock of biomass. It is it's a blue circular economy. Next slide. So of course, we want to do this business all over the world, in different parts of the world, in different models, but it's not the most important. The next slide. So what we're doing right now, concretely, is to build in Port-Saint-Louis-du-Rhône an industrial pilot plant open to all players who want to develop this technology. And it will be operational in 2021. It will be the largest European site based next to Marseille, to the Marseille port, on 1.3 hectares. Global investment is about 6 million euros, and we have 13 employees. Terranova is a member of an organization which develop algae for Europe and member of a French consortium for French consortium for algae productions. Next step beyond this initial demonstrator, which once more will be open to all players who wish to join this technology, will be to build between now and 2022 to have a higher production that will call for about 25 million euro investment, and which in the medium term will produce about 22,000 tons of biomaterial and will employ about 60 people in the south of Marseille. And of course, we want to export this in the Mediterranean Sea. Next slide. This opens to international projects because once more, the sustainable development and development is a priority access for many states. We signed a memorandum of agreement of understanding with Saudi Arabia, who was to find new resources and develop such technologies. And other countries, emerging countries such as Turkey, Tunisia, are also interested to deploy such technology. Next slide. So Ranova has a technology which can be exported. The next step will be to be deployed in an industrial redeployment zone in the south of France. Today, we want to do away from traditional plastics. We want to have bioplastics. So, and there's a growing market, 28% per year, and Ranova will invest significantly, 25 to 30 million euros on this topic. Of course, in 2019, we got the support from Mission of the Future, which made us known, and we are known by the European Commission in the domain of blue bioeconomy, and we got an award from Solaris Paul for sustainable development solution. So at the end, what do we bring versus the current world? Well, between now and 2023, we will capture about 77,000 tons of CO2. We'll employ about 60 persons. There will be less plastic in the ocean because pollution will save 22,000 tons of plastic at sea, and we will improve the quality of water and air by absorbing a lot of CO2 and by capturing the nitrates, which are marine pollutants. Thank you very much for your attention.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Lavoisier, donc de la société Eranova.
Thank you, Mr. Lavoisier from Eranova. This is in line because we talked about blue economy. Let's move on now. That's the last slide of the project. Now we move on to a project with the foundation Pure Ocean, which provides innovative project in the marine environment. And this is presented by Mrs. Adelaide Boggio-Pasqua and Mr. Yuri Timsit, Research Director in the CNRS. Do you have the floor? Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you for your invitation. Pure Ocean, as you said, is a foundation dotation fund whose main objective is to support innovative research projects for the protection of the ocean and, of course, in the Mediterranean, but of course, throughout the world. And this is our DNA, it's innovation. And we want to, we support all those research projects who are very, very promising for the coming years. In our last call for a project this year, well, it was in the crisis, COVID-19 crisis, clearly for us, we knew that we had to support such research projects, which makes it better to better understand and protect the environment, but also projects that could exploit and take advantage of the huge potential of marine resources, especially marine biodiversity. So today, we're going to with Yuri Timsit, we're going to talk about the project Ocean TBO, which means that we want to find new antibiotics thanks to biodiversity found in the sea, the biodiversity of plankton. And before giving him the floor, I will just remind you a couple of key figures associated with the current context. Thank you. As you know, viral and bacterial pandemic are today threatening world health. And what we experience today is just a slight overview of what's to be expected. If we look at the number of epidemics per year, well, it's almost doubled in 2000. And, so today those are epidemics caused 50% by bacteria, even also viruses and other microorganisms like fungi, the SARS-CoV-2, which causes the 19, but the bacteria which causes tuberculosis, which is still active today in some zones, or the Candida auris, which express a lot of resistance to hospitals in many countries in many Western countries. So this is what the most worrying aspect. So there are more and more pathogenic agents or pathogens which are antibiotic resistance. And this is a question of concern for the World Health Organization. And there was a report which said that this antibiotic resistance could cause 10 million deaths per year, so this is something that may come from our poor use or wrong use of antibiotics in the world, but we must try to anticipate on that and to avoid this disaster. And one way to do so is to find new molecules and new processes to limit this antibiotic resistance. So history has shown that it is in nature that we find antibiotics. You see the example of Alexander Fleming, who discovered penicillin by chance through the penicillium fungi. It is essential today to pay. There are treasures on innovation that will make it possible to find solutions for tomorrow. Next slide, please. This is one of the objectives of the Tara Ocean Foundation, which is a scientific consortium which has researchers from all the world to explore biodiversity. So So, you know, we were trying to, sorry, we have a sound problem. Sorry, I'm not, the lady's cut her microphone. The speaker has cut off a microphone. The speaker has cut off a microphone.
Voilà.
Vous nous entendez maintenant?
Ah, c'est bon, oui.
Thank you.
Donc, je disais, le plancton marin, donc les micro-animaux, végétaux, les bactéries.
So microanimals, bacteria, and so on. You know, this is what we have to discover in the ocean. You know, 9 species out of 10 are still to be discovered. And this was the objectives of the exploration of terra oceans. We want to explore the oceans of the world and return to describe and collect data on this biodiversity, which has molecules and most interesting process to be used in the medicine of the future. So, Yuri Sit will now take the floor. Next slide, please. Thank you for describing this project. So just I'd like to insist about 2 things. The current situation. Sorry to interrupt you, but can you get to the solution of the project? Unfortunately, we are running short of time. It's fascinating. I'm very frustrated, but clearly, please stick to the, yeah, this is what I'm about to say. So the solution is not in pharmaceutical industry, that's what I'm about to say, because it is facing a design deadline. In the pharmaceutical industry and in the applied research, we can no longer design drugs, and especially antivirals, antibiotics, new ones. So only innovation can limit epidemics. So innovation is in nature itself and in biodiversity. And this is the main message we want to convey. And this slide summarizes our process. We will dedicate ourselves to study the marine biodiversity provided by the TERRA's data, which comprises hundreds of millions of bacterial and planktonic genes, which contain molecules able to produce new antibiotics. So the main problem will be to do that data mining, to search in the, we are in the MIO, Caroline Becquet and Pascal Engan, who's gone the new step, and this fundamental research in an institute which is itself pluridisciplinary and will comprise physicians, chemists, biologists, and this will make it possible to have to do global research, which is not limited to the antibiotics, but to try to understand not only what are the mechanisms of antibiotic resistance we find in oceans, but also to discover new molecules that fabricate those antibiotics. And pluridisciplinarity will be extended to the Liège University, who are specialists of extremophiles, bacteria of organisms which live in extreme environments, and we could find new molecules, new producers of antibiotics. And once we will have them, we will have developed them, we will collaborate with our partner, which is the Sarge-Barrett Institute in Nîmes. Well, they're specialists of antibiotherapeutics, and we'll be able to test the antibiotics and possibly develop them and develop the first clinical trials. So, to start this project, well, we've asked, we're asking for funds, to do our research. Thank you. And our role is to convey this type of project, very promising, of health, ocean research, and to conduct this project, which are very important. Very enthusiastic, and of course, we will broadcast your project to all the sites, and especially the and on the next platform. And I give Blanca the final word. Thank you very much. And this opportunity was the first one to thank you for the details of the project. And we will welcome you within the framework of the platform. And I hope that we'll have other seminars where you can have more details on the project. And of course, what you've presented is very rich, and I'm certainly you did enough time, but those are very interesting domains for social improvement imaging, and we hope to work with you soon to help you developing those projects. And I hope that in the next one, thank you to the organizer. Thank you, Blanca. And before that, we will send your project. We will contact with you so that you will have all investors for your project. Thank you. See you soon.